In the last video, we took a look at the empirical rule and how the empirical rule helps us to understand how standard deviations help to kind of break up a data set into these different sized chunks. Now, the important thing again to realize is that the empirical rule only worked with symmetrical bell-shaped distributions. We can't stress that enough. So let's take a look down here at example number 1 and try to see how we could use this rule to help answer a question like this. All right, let's see what we have. The mean and standard deviation, measured in months, for the age when a child starts walking are about 15 months and 3 months respectively. So that would mean an average of 15, standard deviation of 3 months. So 15 is average amount of time for a kid to start walking, but don't be too surprised if you overshoot or undershoot that by about 3 months. Remember, that's pretty typical. That was our interpretation of standard deviation. Ooh, here's something great. Assume the data that we have are actually bell-shaped. Notice that once I have this, I know the shape of the distribution, I can use the empirical rule now to help answer some questions. So let's see. What percentage of children start walking between 12 and 18 months of age? Okay, to help go ahead and answer this question, I'm going to go ahead and essentially redraw the picture of the empirical rule that I had up here, down here. So I'm just going to go ahead and try to repeat this picture. So it had this sort of a shape to it, and it has a number line underneath it. Keep in mind that this number line is going to be measuring amounts of months, like how long it takes for a child to start walking. Since I'm told that the data is bell-shaped, I draw this bell-shaped curve. I'm told that the average of that, which I know should fall right in the middle, is 15, and I know that the standard deviation is 3. So if I have a standard deviation here of 3 months, that means I can take a jump of 3 months in each direction. Notice if I go to the right, obviously I would be adding 3 because I'm going up the number of months. And if I'm going down 3, then I'm moving to the left. And so I would say that I would have the following values on my number line. So if I make one jump up and one jump down, if I move over one standard deviation, I get these values. Now again, if I want to try to recreate the picture that I have up above, I can see that I should probably make 1, 2, 3 total jumps in either direction to fully label the picture. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let's see, I'm going to have one additional jump and one final jump. And then I'm going to do the same thing going down. 2 jumps. That's 3 jumps going down. I'm going to mark each of these on the axis, and I know every time I'm either going up or down by 3. So this would be 21 and 24. This here would be the number 9, and this here would be 6. Okay, now I can go ahead and I can imagine kind of creating these dashed lines coming back up, so I can see the different sections that I have kind of under this curve. Remember that the percentages that I had up above listed here are always going to be those same percentages. I'm going to write them out here in red. Remember that my middle pieces here have 34% on them. My outside, or the next set of pieces, are 13.5%. And then over here, these pieces are 2.35%. Remember, I'm just pulling these numbers exactly from the picture up above. And then this last portion down here is 0.15%. Of course, if you added all these together, you have 100% total. Well, with the picture now fully labeled, I should be able to easily answer Part A and Part B and Part C of this question. It shouldn't be too difficult at all. So let's see what Part A asked again. We want to know here what percentage of children start walking between 12 and 18 months. Okay, so like in the picture, I can see that 12 to 18 months covers like this portion of the number line in green. And so I can see what red percentages have I kind of covered in that interval. Oh, well, that's a 34% and another 34%. That's a grand total of 68%. So I'll write out a nice full sentence. About 68% of children start walking between 12 and 18 months. Done, right? The empirical rule gave me everything. If I have this picture, I'm good to go. Okay, this is fantastic. Well, let's go ahead and take a look then at part B, and we're going to constantly reference this picture. Let's see. What percentage of children start walking after 21 months of age? Okay, so after 21 months. Well, again, I can go to the picture and see, well, that kind of corresponds to this, right? This would be everything after 21 months. So what red percentages have I covered? Well, again, no big surprise there. I can just take my two different values and add them together. If I was to do this, I think I end up with 2.5%. So I can say about 2.5% of children start walking after 21 months. Question done, right? Notice it's actually just that simple every single time, no matter what I would give you, right? If I said, what about less than 18 months? Okay, so I shade less than 18 and I add up all the associated red percentages. That's all we have to do here. So this process here hopefully feels somewhat fairly simplistic and is something that you could imagine attempting to kind of repeat over and over and over again. Now, I've left a lot of space here in case you did need to try to redraw this picture. Sometimes people do like to redraw it just in case they color some things or shade some stuff like I've been doing here in green. Let's take a look at the last question here, though, which is part C. And we'll notice that there's a slight difference in the question that's being asked on part B in terms of what it's looking for and this question in part C. All right, take a look at what C says. Some children start walking much earlier than others. Okay, nothing surprising about that. I can easily imagine that. Some kid might start walking, I don't know, after just a couple months or something. Possible, I guess. Before what month of age? Okay, before what month of age do the earliest 2.5% of children start walking? Okay, gosh, that is a weird sounding question. But let's just at least notice first what the objective is for each of these questions. Notice that up above, we were really asked what percentage, right? That was the goal. What percentage of kids? And so in our answer, we said about this percentage of kids start doing this, right? So we knew we were looking for a percentage. But notice down here in part C, are we really being asked for a percentage? No, I mean, what we're really being asked is what month of age, like how many months. So my answer to part C is going to be something like 10 months, 15 months, 6.5 months, right? It's going to be some number of months. Now, pictorially, if I then think about what this has to do with my picture, notice that for part B, we answered with a red value, right? Or something that was found by looking at the red values. That's where we got that mystery percentage. But if I'm looking for a number of months, like in part C, I'm actually looking for numbers on this horizontal number line. I'm looking for these black numbers in the picture. That's what I'm trying to find. And let's see. We want to know before what month. So if there was a number on that number line, what would I have to go before so that way I could hit the earliest or the first 2.5%? Okay, so since I want to go before and look at the earliest, I'm going to start by looking at my red values on the left-hand side, because these are the early walkers, right? Kids that take, 6 months to start walking, that's really fast. So I can see that if I stopped at 6, then before 6, only 0.15% of kids start walking. That's not quite what I want. Well, let's move up a bit. How about we look at the number 9? What percentage of kids start walking before 9 months? Well, that's 2.5%. Before what month do the earliest 2.5% of children start walking? Well, we got it. Notice that if, again, I was to look down here, that's an early 2.5%, and it stops right when I hit 9 months. So I would write my conclusion to this question as follows. I would say the earliest 2.5% of children start walking before 9 months. My answer does have that months as its response. So everything's matching up. I just had to read my picture differently. Notice I could ask a different question like, after, not before, after what month of age do the latest, say, 16% of kids start walking? Well, again, that's easy to see. If I'm looking for the latest number of months, I could kind of start this way in the picture and work backwards until I got to a total of 16%, and then I could see what number of months I stop at. So there's a lot of questions that I could ask in this form where I'm either going to be looking for a red number as my answer, or I might be looking at one of those black numbers on the number line as my answer. So these are the different types of questions that we actually have here. And hopefully this gives you a good sense of the types of questions that we can ask when working here with the empirical rule.